there's a lot of focus around the new leases, what we've got advertised at the moment. But what you need to also focus on is the renewals, the lease renewals. So have a look at that. Have you actually modified your lease renewal process? Because if a tenant's actually come out, they're either in periodic, they're now looking to sign up a new lease, well then now we're going into the new documentation. So where I see a massive issue here is that the new documentation needs to have a lot more information. Even though it's a continuation of the lease, we still need to have a lot more information into the new docs. I wouldn't be going back through, and this came up with a number of the team during the week. I used the homicide. If there's a homicide in a property and you've not had to disclose that in the for the 5 years, if that's not been disclosed previously, I probably wouldn't be putting it into the lease renewal, because you might find that you're going to end up with a spot of bother. So what I would be doing right now is I'd be just going back through and carefully selecting for the lease renewals some of those points that you want to put through. Particularly if you know that a property doesn't meet the minimum standards, I would be adding that into the lease renewal and then going through and then working through the period of time to try and bring the property up to speed. I would want to make sure that I've got all this documented, that I've gone through. So I would have a conversation with the tenant to make sure that this is just letting you know, don't just send through a new lease. It'll be a new form, different style, a lot more conditions. Don't just send it through and if they sign it, say, well, I didn't tell them. Everything around the New Tenancy Act is around disclosure. So try not to be a bit coy. Make sure you're disclosing the fact to the tenant that there's a change in the lease format. Have you created the marketing communication plan for the landlords and the tenants? So let's have a look at that. I'm suggesting a 4 to 6 week plan. For other agencies, I'm suggesting so much more. I'd be running with 8 to 10 to 12 weeks. I'd really want to be trying to push as much as I possibly can over, and I'd run this. So let's just have a look at this. If we say that week 1 is next week, if we've got an email going out, a newsletter, a webinar, maybe 3 pieces of communication going on Instagram, some on social media, maybe a LinkedIn post, maybe you're doing a live Facebook Live, and that might be week 1. Let's put together a plan. So many officers don't have a plan. When I go into an office, I ask them for their marketing plan. I don't think in my years of doing that, I've ever really seen one. I know people say to me, oh, we do this and we do that. There's no actually documented plan. So my suggestion here is to create a 4 to 6 week plan and try and get a piece of communication going out every day. If you can do that, by default, you'll become the go-to person. You'll become the go-to agency in your area. If you haven't got a plan, it's a no. So tick it as a no. What we want to do is at the end of this, once you've gone through, I really want you to be able to go through and tick all of these. So it's either a no or a yes. Don't worry about the okays. If it's okay, it's sort of moderate. But in this scenario, you probably need to tick a no or a yes. Calculate them down below. So you're going to put a 4 in here or a 1 in there, and then that becomes your workload or your tasks. It's like a mini plan that I'm trying to create for you that you can use to then start to work through. The biggest issue that I'm seeing a lot with a lot of agencies is the fact that there is so many things to do. It's like, in addition to everything else I'm doing, at least we've got a bit of a plan. You're not going to get through all of this well, certainly not going to get through it all before Monday, but at least here, if you run through this for the rest of the afternoon and you tick your plan, you'll get a feel for what has and hasn't been done. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to bring up another document. So I'll just, I'll see if I can, I'm going to close that. Where am I up to? Page 5. I'm going to close that one. And you should have, I'm bringing up the next one. I'm going to share the document in through to there. So just bear with me for a minute, guys. Here we go. Here's the next document, which is, I've already gone and created this. It's an editable document for you. And there's 3 checklists, which I'm sending out, or you should already have, or they're in the chat. So the first one in through to here is just the information that you need to disclose when you're creating an ad. So go through, here's a little checkbox. You can just go through and fill these things through, but run an eye over your ads today and just make sure that before you close off tonight, 5 o'clock, that you've got all of these on point. So if you've got 20 ads, 30 ads, whatever it may be, let's have a look at this now. And this is part of the process. Have a look at the advertisement to make sure it complies with the advertising standards. So photographs, are the photographs reflective of what the property looks like? If you're using photographs from 5 years ago, probably may not look the same right now. So you need to make sure that it's reflective of what it looks like. And even if they did professional photos a year ago and it looks different, if there's been changes, modifications, renovation, it needs to be the same. So if there's been new painting, it needs to have new professional photographs. So photos don't just last for one. The photographs are done for one time. If you use them again, that's great. Be really careful around specific statements, such as, distance 5 minutes to, or 200 meters to, or tram at your door, those sorts of things. These things which can't be, unlimited high-speed internet access. The moment, and I've had a couple of situations because I've been doing so many webinars where the internet just drops out. So, that's if I've advertised a property that says that it's secure car parking, a high speed and unlimited internet access, and it's not, I'm now, as an agency principal, I'm now liable for this ad. So I'd want to make sure that my owners have also signed off on this, and so we can share some of the responsibility. Fixed price, that's an easy one. Most agents use fixed price, unless of course you're in a development situation where you might have 5 or 6 or 10 properties. You might have 5 one-bedroom apartments in a building, and you used to put, from 400, can't do that anymore. So you need to run with 5 different ads. Embedded networks, all the things that are needed in through to here, car stackers. If there's communal laundries and they're coin operated, it needs to be incorporated into the ad. So these are all the little checklists you've got in through to here. I've created this checklist with a couple of clients. Specific rules, if there are specific rules around bylaws. And I'll give you an example in through to here. The tenants can now make modifications without consent. So they can theoretically go and change the window furnishings, and they can go and change, you've got a lot of buildings, particularly bigger buildings, where it might say the window furnishings need to be Holland blinds and it's a charcoal or it's a white. The moment that the tenant goes in there and changes the window furnishings, the owner is now in breach. But if you haven't provided that through to the tenant beforehand, then the tenant doesn't know, and it's going to come fall back onto you. Any homicides and so forth.